There's a question few dare to ask. What if the person who was supposed to protect you was the one who hurt you the most? What if the woman who gave you life turned your childhood into a stage where you could only exist as an audience member in an unending drama? The histrionic and narcissistic mother doesn't raise children. She raises spectators. She creates a captive audience to feed her insatiable void of attention. And you, a defenseless child, learned that you could only exist in the intermissions between the acts of her emotional spectacle. Carl Jung revolutionized psychology by daring to look at what he called the shadow, that rejected part of the psyche that hides behind social masks. But Jung was even bolder. He investigated the shadow of the family itself, especially the mother complex, and how a dysfunctional mother can trap a child's soul in patterns that last for decades. What Jung discovered about this dynamic completely changes how we understand our pain, and most importantly, how we can break free from it. Because behind the mask of the loving and devoted mother hides a brutal truth that society prefers to ignore. Look into the mirror of your own story. How many times did you swallow your needs just to avoid bothering a mother who would explode over anything? How many times did you make yourself small, invisible, just so she could shine in the spotlight? You learned early on that your feelings didn't matter, that your achievements only had value if they served for her to show off, that your pain was an inconvenience in her script. And you, desperate for a little love, wore the mask of the perfect child or the problematic child, any role that guaranteed she wouldn't abandon you completely. Your inner child is still there, frozen in time, waiting for her to finally see you, waiting for her to stop performing and start truly loving you. But while you wait in the audience of her life, your own life goes unnoticed. While you feed her ego, yours withers. While you applaud her drama, your authenticity gets lost. While you dance to her tune, you forget the sound of your own voice. Recognize this wound. Feel this pain. Because today you will understand exactly how this dynamic works, why it is so destructive, and most importantly, how to break free from this emotional prison once and for all. The histrionic and narcissistic mother operates like a dark sun at the center of the family system. She demands that everyone orbit around her emotional needs, sucking the light and energy from those close to her to feed her inner void. Jung explained that pathological narcissism is a defense against a deep existential void. The histrionic mother cannot exist without constant attention because deep down, she doesn't know who she is when no one is looking. So she turns the entire family into an extension of her wounded ego. She creates what Jung would call a negative mother complex, a dynamic where the child learns that they can only exist in function of the mother, never as an independent being with their own rights and needs. The child becomes a source of narcissistic supply, an object to validate maternal grandiosity. The family theater works like this. She is always the protagonist, whether in victimhood or grandiosity. The children are mandatory extras, programmed to applaud, console, or serve as a scapegoat when the script demands a villain. It's a psychologically vampiric dynamic. She drains the emotional vitality of her children to maintain her false persona of special mother or misunderstood woman. And the child, dependent on approval and terrified of abandonment, accepts this role because they know no other reality. The first survival strategy is to recognize the dramatic games. The histrionic mother operates in predictable cycles: provocation, explosion, victimhood, false reconciliation. She creates crises out of nowhere to become the center of attention. When you understand it's a pattern, not a genuine reaction, you stop dancing to her tune. Observe the pattern. Recognize the cycle. Stop feeding the drama. The second strategy is to develop what Jung called the observing function. You need to learn to emotionally distance yourself and observe the dynamic like a scientist studying a phenomenon. When she explodes, you don't absorb her energy. You simply observe. Interesting. She's having a narcissistic crisis. Observe without absorbing. See without getting involved. Witness without being contaminated. The third strategy is to create rigid emotional boundaries. You are not responsible for her emotional well-being. You are not an object for her to feel better. When she tries to pull you into the drama, you practice what Jung called continence. You restrain yourself and don't react. Restrain yourself. Protect yourself. Preserve your vital energy. The fourth strategy is to stop seeking her validation. Jung said that individuation requires you to become your own inner father and mother. You need to learn to validate yourself, to emotionally nourish yourself, to be your own source of approval. Validate yourself. Nourish yourself. Become your own loving parent. The fifth strategy is to accept that she will never change. The histrionic narcissist has no insight into their behavior because they live in a distorted reality where they are always the victim or the hero. Accepting this truth frees you from the fantasy that one day she will see you and love you as you deserve. Accept reality. Free yourself from fantasy. Stop waiting for the impossible. The sixth strategy is to rebuild your identity away from her stage. Jung emphasized that individuation requires you to discover who you are when you are not performing for anyone. You need to explore your own tastes, dreams, and values, not the ones she approved or rejected. Discover yourself. Explore yourself. Become yourself. The seventh strategy is to process repressed anger. Children of histrionic mothers learn that their anger is dangerous, that it can result in abandonment or retaliation. But Jung knew that unprocessed anger becomes depression. You need to feel this anger, honor it, and channel it toward your liberation. Feel the anger. Honor the anger. Use the anger as fuel for your freedom. The eighth strategy is to develop what Jung called a conscious persona. Instead of using unconscious masks to survive her chaos, you consciously choose how you want to interact. You no longer react automatically. You respond in a calculated and intentional way. Choose your response. Control your energy. Be strategic in the interaction. The ninth strategy is to cultivate healthy relationships outside the family dynamic. Jung knew that we cannot heal in isolation. You need to experience what it's like to be seen, valued, and loved for who you truly are, not for the role you play. Connect authentically. Allow yourself to be seen. Experience real love. The 10th and final strategy is to embrace what Jung called psychological rebirth. You need to symbolically ritualize your exit from the family theater. This can be literal, moving to a new city, cutting contact, or symbolic, internally declaring your emotional independence. Undergo psychological rebirth. Declare your independence. Leave the stage and step into your own life. Now that you know the 10 strategies, how do you begin to apply them? The first wound to heal is that of your inner child, that part of you still waiting in the audience for a love that will never come. Grab a journal and start a dialogue with this child. Ask them, what did you most need to hear when you were suffering? And then, as the conscious adult you are today, give them exactly those words. Write to them, you are not responsible for her feelings. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not for what you do. Your feelings are valid. Your needs matter. You have the right to exist outside her drama. Practice the active imagination that Jung developed. Visualize yourself stepping onto the stage of your memory and removing that child from the audience. Tell them the show is over, that now you will create a new life, far from her unhealthy spotlight. This exercise is not just symbolic, it's alchemical. Jung believed that we can literally transform our psychic reality through conscious work with the contents of the unconscious. Be rigorously honest in this process. Don't romanticize the relationship. Don't justify her behavior. Look at the raw truth. She used you to feed her own emptiness. And now you will use that awareness to fill your own emptiness with genuine self-love. You are no longer the same after hearing these words. You can no longer unsee the pattern. The shadow has been brought to light, and now you are the conscious observer of your own story. You are no longer the captive audience of her drama. You are no longer an extra in her play. You are the protagonist of your own life, the director of your own story, the author of your own destiny. Recognize your transformation. Celebrate your courage. Honor your journey home, to the home of your true self. The child that was frozen in the audience is now free to play. The part of you that was programmed to applaud can now choose when, how, and to whom to direct your energy. The child who existed only to validate can now exist to express themselves. You no longer need her approval to exist. You no longer need her drama to feel alive. You no longer need her stage to have a place in the world. Comment which of the 10 strategies resonated most with your soul. Which one made your inner child sigh with relief? Like if you felt the courage to finally leave the audience of her life. Subscribe to continue this journey of individuation, because now you know there's no going back to unconsciousness. The journey home to your true self is just beginning, and this time you are the one writing the script. Integrate.